If the payment fits in your budget, then everything's fine, right? How many times have you heard, or even said, this phrase before closing a deal on a car? It sounds logical, responsible, almost mature. After all, if at the end of the month, the amount doesn't strain the budget, and there's still some left over to live on, where's the problem? That's exactly where the danger lies, because this comfortable, seemingly harmless idea is one of the most used and most expensive traps in consumer decisions related to cars and financing. Perhaps you've experienced this before. You walk into the dealership with a price in mind, talk to the salesperson, do a quick mental calculation, and hear that magic phrase, "We'll adjust the payment to fit your budget." The term gets a little longer, the down payment gets lower, the monthly payment becomes more manageable, and suddenly everything seems resolved. You feel relieved, secure, even proud that you made a conscious choice. Have you ever been through this? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you more than you imagine. The problem is that fitting the budget has become an emotional criterion, not a financial one. It speaks to the present moment, to immediate comfort, to the desire for a quick solution. And when we talk about personal finances and consumer decisions, especially involving cars, the present moment almost never tells the whole story. Small installments hide big decisions. And the more comfortable the installment seems, the more invisible the real cost of that choice becomes over time. Nobody sits down with you to explain that by extending the payment term, you're not just paying for more months. You're paying more interest, more risk, and less financial freedom in the future. Nobody shows you that the feeling of control at the beginning can turn into silent hardship later. And it's not because you were irresponsible or because you don't know how to handle money. Quite the opposite. This system was designed to seem logical, simple, and safe. It relies precisely on the idea that if the installment fits in your budget today, it automatically fits into your financial life as a whole. And that's why so many people who always paid everything on time feel stuck, without room to maneuver, without breathing room, even earning reasonably well. The car becomes a fixed commitment that seems small month to month, but weighs heavily when you look ahead. When an opportunity arises, an unforeseen event, or even a new financial goal, the space simply doesn't exist. All because someone convinced you, or you convinced yourself, that a comfortable monthly payment was synonymous with a smart decision. Perhaps, as you listen to this now, some situation is making sense in your head. Maybe you're remembering a specific negotiation, a recent choice, or even planning to buy a car soon. What follows will help you see this decision in a different way, using a simple, clear, and direct criterion that exists precisely to protect you from these silent traps. And that's where the conversation starts to get really interesting. And if, while you're listening to all this, some memory starts to resonate more strongly within you, it's worth paying attention to it, because these decisions are almost never just numbers on paper. They carry expectations, momentary relief, sometimes even that feeling of, now my life will move forward. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. It could be an experience you've already lived through, a question you've always kept to yourself, or even a feeling you've never stopped to name. When you write, you're not just talking to me. You're helping other people who are going through the exact same situation to recognize themselves as well. If this type of conversation helps you see money in a clearer, more honest way, it's worth liking the video. It seems simple, but it's a sign that this content needs to continue reaching more people who still think a comfortable payment plan is synonymous with the right decision. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content, without shouting, without empty promises, just with real reflection on personal finance and consumption decisions. Now, if you feel you want to continue understanding these silent traps better, if you want to learn how to make more conscious decisions before taking on long-term commitments like a car loan, subscribing to the channel is almost a way of saying, I want to change how I deal with this. The idea here isn't to tell you what to buy or what to avoid, but to give you criteria, clarity, and tools so you don't fall into choices that seem harmless at first, but exact a high price later. And while you comment, like, or subscribe, think about this. How many important financial decisions have you made simply because it seemed to make sense at the time? It's precisely from this question that the conversation begins to get deeper, and that's where we'll go from here. The point is that almost no one tells you the whole truth when it comes to car financing. Fitting in your budget sounds like a stamp of approval, but that doesn't mean, by any means, that this decision fits into your financial life. Your wallet feels the present, your financial life feels the time, and it's precisely in this silent difference that many people get lost without realizing it. The small monthly payment creates a feeling of control that doesn't last long, while the real impact accumulates behind the scenes, month after month, without making a sound. At first, everything seems under control. The money leaves your account. You adapt, rearrange a few expenses, and it feels like everything went well. But financing doesn't live in the present. It lives in the future. And that's where the hidden truth that rarely comes up in conversation comes in. Small installments almost always hide accumulated interest, excessively long terms, and a real risk of financial suffocation that isn't immediately apparent. This type of decision doesn't take its toll in the first month, or even the sixth. It starts to show its impact later on, when you're already stuck with the commitment. In the second or third year, the story changes. The car is no longer new, the emotional motivation has faded, but the payment remains firmly in place, taking up space. It is at this point that many people realize they have lost their margin to invest, to change plans, to deal with unforeseen events, or even to seize an opportunity that arises. The decision that seemed easy begins to weigh heavily, not because the payment has increased, but because their life has changed and the commitment has not kept pace with this transformation. And the most dangerous thing is that this happens to organized people who pay everything on time and consider themselves responsible. It's not a lack of discipline. It's a mindset built on an incomplete criterion. When you decide solely based on the installment payment, you're looking at a very small slice of the journey. You're ignoring the accumulated impact, the behind-the-scenes aspects of this choice, and how it connects to your real financial future. The car becomes a fixed point in a scenario that should be flexible. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject because understanding this invisible error isn't about blaming past decisions, but about gaining clarity for future ones. When you start to see financing as a long journey and not as an isolated monthly payment, everything changes. The way you assess risk, comfort, and financial security transforms. And it's at this moment that it becomes possible to compare criteria, separate what seems convenient from what truly protects your future, and realize that not every comfortable decision is a smart one. If this makes sense to you so far, comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because after understanding the invisible error, it makes sense to present a simple criterion that exists precisely to avoid this type of silent trap. And when I say simple, I mean really simple. No complicated formulas, no spreadsheets that only specialists understand. The 20-4-10 rule works as a practical filter for car decisions, something that changes your mindset even before you enter into a negotiation. The numbers may seem rigid at first glance, but each one has a clear reason. A 20% down payment isn't punishment, it's protection. When you make a real down payment, you reduce risk, lower the financed amount, and cut a huge portion of the hidden interest that would accumulate over the years. It's a decision that already puts you at an advantage behind the scenes, even before signing any contract. Unlike the logic of a minimum payment, a down payment forces a pause, a moment of reflection, and that alone transforms the decision. The 4-year financing limit follows the same logic. The longer the term, the more comfortable the monthly payment seems, but the greater the accumulated impact. Interest doesn't make a sound monthly. It works silently. A shorter term isn't about suffering now. It's about not carrying an unnecessary burden later. It preserves your financial energy for the future, keeps your journey lighter, and avoids that feeling of always chasing your own tail, paying for something that no longer brings any enthusiasm. And perhaps the most overlooked point of all is the limit of up to 10% of monthly income. Here's a hidden truth that few people face. Your income doesn't exist solely to pay bills. It needs to support choices, unexpected events, opportunities, and transformation. When a car consumes more than that, it starts competing with your future. The payment might fit in your budget, but it steals space from bigger decisions, from plans that require freedom, not fixed commitments. When you compare this logic to the affordable payment model, the difference becomes clear. One focuses only on the present, on immediate comfort, on the feeling of relief. The other focuses on impact, on the journey, on the sum of decisions over time. One facilitates the purchase. The other protects your financial life. And this comparison changes everything, because it's no longer about choosing a car, but about choosing what story you want to tell in a few years about your decisions. The 24-10 rule doesn't promise status, doesn't impress salespeople, and doesn't accelerate negotiations. Its value lies precisely in what isn't visible. Less stress, more margin, more clarity. It's a mindset tool, not just a calculation tool. It helps you see beyond the monthly numbers and make decisions that continue to make sense even when the excitement fades and reality changes. And as this logic begins to fall into place, it becomes impossible not to notice how many financial problems don't stem from major mistakes, but from small, repeated compromises. That's where the conversation starts to gain even more depth, because understanding the criteria is only the beginning of a real change in decision-making. If this is clarifying things for you now, comment below. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, placing two stories side by side, because it's when we visualize scenarios that the decision ceases to be abstract and begins to take on real form. Imagine two people with similar incomes, similar desires, and the same goal: to buy a car. The difference between them is not in the chosen model, nor in the brand, nor in the total value. It's in the criteria used to decide. Person A enters the dealership focused on one thing only: the payment. The salesperson adjusts the numbers, extends the term, reduces the down payment, and in a few minutes everything seems resolved. The payment fits in their budget, they have some breathing room in the month, and the feeling is one of victory. In the first few months, the choice seems to confirm that it was the right one. There is no immediate pain, no conflict, just the routine continuing. But behind the scenes, dependence begins to form. Any unforeseen event generates tension. Any new decision needs to be thought through with excessive care. The car, little by little, ceases to be a means and becomes a fixed commitment that dictates the rhythm of their financial life. The stress doesn't appear all at once. It creeps in. Person B takes the opposite approach. Before deciding, they apply a filter that seems more rigid, even uncomfortable at first. Entry requires planning. The shorter time frame is daunting. The income limit imposes choices, but something different happens on this journey. The commitment is shorter in time, the impact is more predictable, and the feeling of control grows instead of diminishing. It's not a decision based solely on the present, but on what comes next. Over the years, this person realizes they've gained something valuable: room for choice, room to say yes to opportunities, room to deal with change, room to adjust course without despair. While Person A feels they are always keeping things afloat, Person B feels progress, not because they earn more, but because they made better decisions. One lives trying to juggle plates, the other builds space. One feels the car is part of everything. The other feels the car only occupies the space it should occupy. This comparison reveals a hidden truth that is almost never spoken. Immediate comfort and future freedom rarely go hand in hand when the decision is poorly filtered. This is when many people begin to rethink past choices or to see decisions they haven't even made yet in a new light. Not with guilt, but with clarity. Because understanding this difference isn't about right or wrong, it's about awareness. It's about realizing how small, repeated decisions shape an entire trajectory. The financial journey doesn't change with a grand heroic act, but with simple criteria applied consistently, even when no one is watching. As this comparison comes together, it becomes clear that it's not just about the car, but about mindset, about how you decide, what you prioritize, the invisible impact each choice carries. This perception opens up space for an even deeper reflection on the kind of freedom you are, building without realizing it, decision after decision. If this comparison made you reconsider something, comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because after seeing both paths side by side, a question arises that completely changes the way you decide. A simple question, but full of impact, that almost no one asks themselves at the time of purchase. It's not about the model. It's not about the monthly payment. It's not about what others will think. The question is this car making your life easier or delaying your future? When you stop running away from this reflection, many things begin to reorganize themselves internally. Because the problem was never the car itself. The car is neither the villain nor the savior. It's just a tool. What defines whether this tool helps or hinders is the decision that comes before, behind the scenes, when no one is watching. That's where mindset comes into play. That's where small concessions accumulate and shape an entire journey without us even realizing it. Many people associate financial discomfort with the value of the asset, but the hidden truth is different. The burden comes from poor calculations, excessively long time frames, and compressed income without any margin. It stems from a choice that seemed harmless at first, but which gradually reduced options over time. Little by little, the feeling of progress gives way to stagnation, not because the person made a gross error, but because they decided without criteria, relying only on the feeling of immediate relief. This question about whether to facilitate or delay the future doesn't seek a quick answer. It provokes transformation. It forces you to look beyond the current month and consider the real impact of that decision 2, 3, 4 years from now. It forces you to confront whether the comfort of now is being bought with the freedom of later. And when that awareness arises, it becomes impossible to go back to. Deciding in the same way. Perhaps you'll realize that some past choices would be different today. Perhaps you'll understand why certain phases were tighter than they needed to be. Or perhaps you're at the exact moment to decide something important and still have room to adjust course. All of this is part of the process. It's part of maturing financially without guilt, without drama, just with more clarity and responsibility for your own decisions. And the more this reflection goes on, the more evident it becomes that there are recurring errors, repeating patterns, traps that seem different but follow the same script. There are real situations, simple simulations, and common cases that help to see this even more clearly. When you start connecting these dots, the decision ceases to be emotional and becomes conscious, aligned with who you want to become and the future you are building, even if it is not yet visible. If this question has been echoing inside you, comment below. This makes sense to me. And if you've made it this far, it probably wasn't by chance. This type of conversation isn't about cars, numbers, or isolated rules. It's about making better choices from now on, with more clarity and less regret. If this content has helped you see your decisions in a different way, it makes sense to stick around. Subscribing to the channel is a simple way to say that you want to continue this line of reflection, learning to avoid silent traps and making more conscious decisions. Every day. If any part of this conversation resonated with you, leave a comment saying so. This message was for me, or I'm with you until the end. This helps close the loop and also shows that you followed everything attentively. And if at any point you felt that we were speaking the same language, a like comes almost as a natural gesture. It strengthens this exchange and helps this type of content continue to exist here. Now, there's a video here that perfectly complements this conversation, providing more examples and real-life situations that help illustrate all of this in practice. Click on it and continue reading.